to teach you everything you need to know to get started with the legendary Arc 5 decks.
Aye. Subscribe.
Man, it's always an exciting time when we get a new entry point into the game because it means I get to help a bunch of new duelists figure out what the heck to do with their brand new cards. Today we are going to be going over the Speedroid, Lunalight, and Odd Eyes decks that come in the legendary Arc 5 box, providing you with deck lists, actually talking you through the cards and why we include them, then teaching you how to play each deck, what your end goals are and what you're building towards, alongside how to combo. Also, disclaimer, you only need to buy one full legendary Arc 5 box. There are a couple of extra singles out of it that you'll need, and I will tell you what those are throughout the video, but there's no need to pick up 3 full boxes, so save yourself some money. Now, without further ado, what's the Arc 5 slogan? Let's swing into action! Or something like that, I guess. So as you can see, we have our 3 fully built decks, and we're going to be taking you through them one by one, starting off with probably my favorite out of the box, and that is Speedroid. I'm a sucker for synchros, man, what can I say? So how we're going to do this is I'll run you through the card by card list. I'll talk you through the cards while we're doing that, and then after that we'll go through the game plan, what your end board pieces are that you're working towards, and then I'll show you some of the combos as always. So getting into the main deck for the Speedroids here, we want to play 3 copies of Terrortop. If you see Terrortop, you want to start with the Terrortop because you can only special summon it while you control no monsters, and that is a 1-card combo. We have 3 copies of the new Darumaknocker. You only get 2 in a box, so you would need to pick up 1 additional copy of the Darumaknocker unless you're lucky enough to pull a secret rare in the extra pack. We then also have 3 copies of the Marble Machine, and these are your 3 different 1-card combos in the deck. We're also playing 3 copies of Speedroid Scratch because this can get to one of your 1-card combos, or it can just search for any piece that you need at any given time. And then we're playing 3 Speedroid Wheel as well. This card isn't ideal, but it can be a full 1-card combo by itself if you roll a 3 or higher. Because the legendary Arc 5 decks don't come with the Speedroid Kernel Clackers, we kind of need to make up for the lost consistency, and so Speedroid Wheel, while not being a perfect card, can do that just fine. For our extenders, we're playing 3 copies of Takatomborg and 2 copies of the Car Turbo. These are essentially just free wind bodies which can help you either get to your Link 2 or Synchro Summon. And then we have our engine requirements: 1 red-eyed dice, we have the Den Daiko Juke, the Double Yo-Yo, the Clear Wing Wonder, and the Speedroid Duplicate. These all come up throughout a series of our combos. If we were to play 2 red-eyed dice, which would be an extra brick in the deck, Speedroid Wheel then becomes full combo if you roll a 2 or higher, because you're able to summon 2 level 1s from the deck, provided that you roll a 2, which would then get you to your Link 2, and therefore full combo from there. This is pretty much it for all of the engine that we want to play. There are some other cards in the deck that just aren't worth playing. Of course, Speed Recovery is just an unsearchable reborn, so, you know, it's basically just like playing Monster Reborn, which you don't really want to do. Speedroid Wing Synchron, you can't really pair this with anything except Marble Machine. Typically, you'll want to normal summon the Marble Machine, so this doesn't really come up without the Kernel Clackers in the deck. And then the Ultra Hound is just a little bit too slow. I think the deck has just evolved past using this card because you don't really want to use your normal summon on this, and, you know, you don't really want to play for turn 3. But of course, you can experiment with it if you really want to. The rest of the deck is generic non-engine, so I have compiled a bunch of generic cards from the box here. You can replace this with anything that you want. Here, we're playing the 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Impermanence. Ideally, you want to play the 3 copies of Fuwalos. Of course, you only get 1 in a box. So if you've opened 3 boxes, you'll have the 3 Fuwalos. Otherwise, you should probably pick up the 2 additional copies of Fuwalos. Then we have 2 copies of Droll, 2 copies of Nibiru, a Called by the Grave, and a Triple Tactics Talent. Moving on to the extra deck. For the end board pieces, we have 2 copies of the Crystal Clearwing Over Synchro Dragon. This is your big boss monster. You only get 1 per box. Probably worth picking up the 2nd copy because this is really easy to summon, and we'll talk about that as we go through the cards. Other end board pieces, we have the Clearwing Rider, the Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon, the Clearwing Fast Dragon, and of course the Clearwing Synchro Dragon, the heart and soul of the deck. deck. You might want to play 2 of these. You do only get 1 per box, but you are typically just summoning it back from the graveyard a lot with the glider, so it's pretty fine getting away with just the 1. And these are all your interruptive endboard pieces. For setting up, we have the 2 copies of our Link 2, the rubber band shooter, 2 copies of the high Speedroid glider, and the 1 copy of Cork Shooter. I would like to play 2 Cork Shooter, but we need the room for everything else. The rubber band shooter has to banish a wind synchro from your extra deck to reveal 2 Speedroid cards for its effect, and so you want different combinations available to you. Therefore, we're playing the puzzle as a level 4, the Hagoita as a level 5, I don't know how you pronounce this, man, and the Stardust Charge Warrior as a level 6 as well. And then finally, we have the Kite Drake, which is nice for going second. So yeah, that's the entirety of the Speedroid deck. We didn't actually need too many additional cards on top of just the 1 box, and it's actually pretty consistent and pretty solid. So let's talk about our end goal and some of our key cards. Alright, so here we have some of our key setup pieces and some of our key disruptive endboard pieces that we want to work towards throughout our turn. The basic end goal for Speedroid, while there are a couple of additions you can make to the end board, the bare minimum you usually want to aim for is summoning the Crystal Clearwing over Synchro Dragon backed up with the Speedroid Clearwing Wonder. Now, to gain access to the trap, you have 3 different methods of searching for it. You can search it with the graveyard effect of Darumaknocker when it's sent from the field to the graveyard. You can search it with the unsummon effect of the Cork Shooter, provided you don't need the additional bodies that it could summon back to Synchro Summon. And you can also search it with the Speedroid Scratch, although typically you'll be using this to combo rather than just search for the trap. Now, this trap has 2 different effects. While it's on the field, you can flip it and activate its effect to destroy some of your opponent's cards, depending on the different monster types you have on field among your wind synchros. And then it also has a graveyard effect, which you can activate in the same turn. It doesn't read very strong, but it's actually a very strong effect. So what it does is targets one of your wind synchros, banishes it temporarily, and if we were to use that, for example, on our Crystal Clearwing over Synchro Dragon, this card is a soft once per turn. And what that means is it says once per turn, when another card or its effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And if you destroyed a monster, this card gains attack equal to the monster's original attack until the end of this turn. This card can basically just negate everything, but because it does not say you can only use each effect of Crystal Clearing over Synchro Dragon once per turn and only once that turn, that means if you're able to summon multiple copies of this card, each of them are able to use that negate effect. And therefore, if you were to banish it temporarily and summon it back to the field, it counts as a new copy of the card, and therefore you're able to use that negate effect again. So you're getting 2 interruptions out of your Clearwing Wonder, popping some cards, and then resetting your negate to use it once again. The Duplicate is also a trap card with an on-field interruption. You can banish 1 wind monster from your graveyard, and target 1 card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Doesn't really require much setup, so it is a solid interruption. Typically, you'll be using it as a combo piece with the Darumaknocker effect as a starter, but if you are able to get this on your end board, which you can do with some extra gas hands, then it's a nice piece of interruption. Now, when it comes to summoning out your big boy, you're typically going to be using the High Speedroid Glider number 2 as well as the Clearwing Synchro Dragon. However, the High Speedroid Glider's effect on summon is actually able to summon back the Clearwing Synchro Dragon from the graveyard. So if you have a particularly gas hand and you are able to summon the Clearwing Synchro Dragon, you can use it as material for an additional endboard piece for something like the Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon, and then go into your High Speedroid Glider to summon back the Clearwing Synchro Dragon and use that as the material to get into your big boy as well as your Crystal Clearwing Synchro. Now, of course, there are 3 additional Clearwing Synchro endboard pieces that we have at the bottom here. You can just hard make them. However, our big boy also has an additional effect where if this face-up Synchro summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Clearwing monster from your extra deck. So you use the negate on this, you then use the trap to return it and use the negate again. Once your opponent finally removes this card, you're just going to be able to bring out one of your additional big boy synchro monsters, which is also going to provide another interruption. It's worth noting it does only special summon that monster, so for example with the Clearwing Rider, you're not going to be able to use the last effect on this card because it's not treated as a synchro summoned monster and it says you contribute the synchro summoned card. So just keep that in mind. And then for some of our setup pieces here, of course we have the Cork Shooter, which on summon can either search for our Clearwing Wonder trap card, or if you need to, it can summon back the materials that you use for its summon to continue to synchro summon and get into your your bigger synchros. And then we have the Rubber Band Shooter. You don't always need to go through this card if you have a very, very strong engine hand. This just takes 2 of your wind bodies that maybe you don't particularly need, and then helps you get some of the cards that you do need into rotation. Very frequently, if this gets negated, your turn is going to get stopped, and that's an unfortunate part of just playing Speedroids, but it's fun nonetheless. Anyway, enough yapping. Let's get into some visual demonstrations and show you some of the combos we have available here. All right, I'm going to walk you through 3 of our different one-card combos here that all kind of approach from 3 different starts. Then hopefully by showing you all 3 of these combos, you'll be able to pick up how our typical turn is structured and how you can actually play with the deck. So here we're going to start off with our Terrortop. We're going to special summon the Terrortop because we control no monsters, and then activate Terrortop's effect on summon to search. You want to access as many different cards through your chain of effects as possible, so here we are going to search for the Marble Machine because we're then able to normal summon the Marble Machine and activate its effect to search as well, where we'll search for the new Darumaknocker. We'll activate the Darumaknocker in hand to special summon itself by sending the Speedroid duplicate to the graveyard. Like I said, the duplicate is very commonly used as a combo piece rather than an end board piece, although there are occasions where your hand is so gassed that you don't need to do this, and you're able to just set it up on your end field instead. But yeah, here we're going to activate the effect of duplicate, targeting the Darumaknocker. It's going to reduce its level by 1 to special summon itself as a normal monster, and then here we're going to be able to link. We're going to bring out our Rubber Band Shooter, and with the Darumaknocker being sent from the field to the graveyard, it's going to be able to search a Speedroid spell or trap. Here we are going to search for the Speedroid Scratch. For the Scratch, we have to send a Speedroid card from hand to the graveyard, and currently we have no Speedroid cards in our hands. But that is where the Rubber Band Shooter comes into play. Currently, we're lacking tuner access, so we're going to use the Rubber Band Shooter to get some of our tuners into rotation. It's going to banish a Wind Synchro from the extra deck and then reveal 2 Speedroid monsters with a combined level total of that banished Synchro monster. Here we want to get our Speedroid Red-Eyed Dice and our Den Daiko Duke in rotation, so that is a level 4 that we want to banish for the effect. We are going to banish our Speedroid Puzzle here, and now we're randomly going to get 1 to hand and 1 sent to the graveyard, but we're just going to pitch whatever we add to hand with the Speedroid Scratch, so it doesn't really matter how this plays out. We're then going to activate the Speedroid Scratch, pitching our Red-Eyed Dice to search for the Speedroid Double Yo-Yo. On normal summon, the Double Yo-Yo is a reborn for a Speedroid monster, and our Link 2 gives us an additional normal summon, so we can use the effect of Rubber Band Shooter to additional normal summon our Double Yo-Yo, and then use our Double Yo-Yo effect to summon back our Red-Eyed Dice, and this is going to get us into our tuner plays. With the Den Daiko Duke in graveyard, we're going to be able to recur a tuner as well, so we have plenty of access to bodies. Therefore, when we synchro our Red-Eyed Dice and our Marble Machine into our Cork Shooter, we're going to be able to just search for our trap card here and then synchro with the Double Yo-Yo into our Clearwing Synchro Dragon because the Cork Shooter is a tuner. Now we can use the graveyard effect of Den Daiko Duke. It's going to banish itself and target a Speedroid tuner in graveyard, summon it back to the field. We are going to summon back our Speedroid Red-Eyed Dice. Then on summon, we can activate the Red-Eyed Dice, target our Terrortop, and make it level 4. Since we have access to our Clearwing Synchro Dragon, we now just need a level 5 Synchro Tuner to make our big Synchro. So we're going to synchro the Terrortop with the Red-Eyed Dice into our high Speedroid glider number 2. Now, if we had an extender in hand like Takatomborg or Car Turbo, we would have been able to use that in conjunction with our Clearwing Synchro Dragon to make an additional endboard piece, and then when we summon the high Speedroid glider, we would be able to summon back the Clearwing Synchro Dragon from the graveyard. But because here we're just showcasing the 1-card combo with the Terrortop, we don't have that additional extender to make an additional Synchro monster. We're just going to have to synchro straight into our over Synchro Dragon and set our trap and pass our turn. So overall here from our 1-card combo, we of course have our Omni Negate on our big Synchro monster. We have our Trap Interruption where we can pop 1 card. We then have the Graveyard effect of our trap, which is going to temporarily banish our Synchro monster. Then we have the Negate once again. Then once our opponent actually removes this from the field, we're going to be able to activate its effect in graveyard to summon out either a Spell Trap Negate or the Clearwing Rider, which is a non-targeting pop which can pop multiple cards depending on your dice roll. So while it didn't actually look like much, it was still quite a decent number of interruptions from just our 1-card combo. Alright, so you saw with the Terrortop combo, we were able to summon and then search and then summon and then search and then get to the Link 2 with our Darumaknocker that way. This time it's kind of in reverse, where we start with the Darumaknocker and then get to our other cards, which gets to our full board of bodies. Here we are going to start by activating the Darumaknocker, which is going to send the duplicate to the graveyard once again to special summon itself. We'll then go duplicate effect in graveyard, target the Darumaknocker to reduce its level by 1, and then special summon back the trap as a normal monster, where we can then link 2 into our rubber band shooter, once again triggering the Darumaknocker. Since it was sent from field to grave, we can search for a Speedroid spell or trap. We're then going to activate the effect of rubber band shooter, and this time we want not only the Daiko Duke but also the Terrortop in rotation, because we're not going to be able to special summon this since we now control monsters. We want to reborn it from the graveyard with double yo-yo later on. So this is a 3+a3. We're going to banish a level 6 Wind Synchro, so the Stardust Charge Warrior from our extra deck. Once again, same situation. It doesn't matter which one gets added to hand and which one gets sent to graveyard, because with the Speedroid Scratch, we're then just going to pitch whichever one to the graveyard anyway to grab the Marble Machine. We'll then use the effect of Rubber Band Shooter to give us an additional normal summon on the Marble Machine. Marble Machine effect is going to search for the double yo-yo. We can then normal summon the double yo-yo and activate the double yo-yo's effect to summon back the Terrortop. And then Terrortop effect on summon is going to search for the Speedroid Takatomborg, because we've used both of our normal summons. The Takatomborg can just special summon itself. We'll then activate the Takatomborg's effect, tributing itself to bring out the red-eyed dice from the deck. And now we're at the same situation as the previous combo, where we have all 4 of our bodies. So we're going to be able to synchro the dice with the Marble Machine into our Cork Shooter. And once again, we're going to be able to use the Cork Shooter to search for our trap card. We can then synchro the double yo-yo with the Cork Shooter into our Clear Wing Synchro Dragon and use the graveyard effect of the Daiko Duke to summon back the dice. And then the dice effect on summon will target the Terrortop to make it level 4, allowing us to synchro into the High Speedroid Glider. Same situation as before. If we had something like a Car Turbo in hand to extend, we would be able to use this as a synchro material for something else to then bring it back with the Glider here. But with just a 1-card combo, we're just going to synchro these two into the big boy, and we have the exact same end board. Alright, and finally we get to the funny wheel combo, which obviously isn't ideal because it's a little RNG dependent. If you roll a 1 and you have no further extension, then you're kind of cooked. But as long as we're able to summon 2 bodies from the deck with our Speedroid wheel, then we're able to get to the full combo. Therefore, we need to roll a 3 or higher. If we were to play the 2 red-eyed dice, even if we roll a 2, it would still be full combo, because we could then just summon the 2 dice from the deck and make the link 2. But that does require playing an additional brick in the deck for a very situational fringe case. So let me show you how it's done, baby. Let's gamba. We're going to activate our wheel, of course pitching a card from hand, and we're going to roll a dice. We need to roll 3 or higher, baby. We got a 3, let's go. Okay, so with the bodies that you want to summon from the wheel, you want to summon at least one of the red-eyed dice or the Daiko Duke. Obviously, because we rolled a 3 and we want 2 bodies, we're not going to be able to summon the Daiko Duke here, so we're going to summon out the Speedroid dice, and a level 2 being the Marble Machine. From there, we're then going to link our 2 monsters into the Rubber Band Shooter and activate the Rubber Band Shooter effect. We want one of our starters in hand here, those being the Marble Machine or the Terrortop, so we're going to need to banish a level 5 Wind Synchro from our extra deck. Goodbye, Hagoita. What even is this, man? Like a ping pong shuttlecock badminton thing? So here it doesn't matter which goes to hand and which goes to the graveyard. We're going to be able to get to a strong end board either way. I will say if we get the Marble Machine to hand, our board is a bit stronger because we're able to get 2 traps in rotation, as it allows us to go through the double yo-yo. The more awkward situation is when we get the Terrortop to hand and Marble Machine goes to the graveyard, but it's still fine. We'll then use the effect of Rubber Band Shooter to give us an additional normal summon on the Terrortop, and then go Terrortop effect to search for another copy of Marble Machine. That's all 3 Marble Machines out of the deck, man. We'll then use our normal summon on Marble Machine and go Marble Machine effect to search for our Darumaknocker. Since we only have the red-eyed dice in graveyard, with the effect of the Darumaknocker, we're going to send the Daiko Duke to graveyard for its effect to special summon itself, and then we can use the graveyard effect of Daiko Duke to summon back our dice, and we have all of our bodies here. Now, we do still have to play it a little differently here because the levels don't really work in this situation. We're going to use the effect of the Speedroid red-eyed dice to make Terrortop a level 2. That's going to allow us to synchro into our Cork Shooter here and use the effect of Cork Shooter to summon back those materials. Cork Shooter does only summon back from the graveyard specifically, so if you were to use a Marble Machine for its effect, you wouldn't be able to summon back the materials because Marble Machine would go to the face-up extra deck. Now here on resolution of the Cork Shooter effect, we're going to use the on summon effect of Red Eye Dice, targeting our Marble Machine to make it level 4. From there we can synchro our Darumaknocker with our Terrortop to bring out the Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Of course that is going to trigger the graveyard effect of Darumaknocker to search a spell trap, so we can grab our Speedroid Clear Wing Wonder here. We can then use our level 3 Synchro Tuner Cork Shooter with our Clear Wing Synchro Dragon to bring out the Crystal Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. This of course is the spell trap negate, but because we were able to put the Clear Wing Synchro Dragon in the graveyard, we can now synchro the dice with the Marble Machine into our High Speedroid Glider numero dos, and finally activate its effect on summon to bring back the Clear Wing Synchro Dragon, giving us the bodies we need to bring out the big boy, the Over Synchro Dragon, and that is the wheel combo. So overall here we have the Omni negate on our big boy, we have the spell trap negate on the Crystal Clear Wing Synchro Dragon. Of course, in response to a monster effect, we can make this unaffected. We have the pop a card on our trap. When our opponent special summons a monster, we can activate the trap to temporarily banish our big synchro, giving us a second Omni negate live. Again, if our opponent special summons a monster, we can use the graveyard effect of our High Speedroid Glider numero dos to mess with their levels. Then after all that, if our opponent is finally able to remove our Over Synchro Dragon, we can use the graveyard effect. We can either bring out the Clear Wing Fast Dragon if we need another interruption, or the Motorbike if our opponent is out of gas and we just need to clean up the boards. I don't know if I've mentioned this already, but you cannot summon another Over Synchro Dragon off of the graveyard effect of Over Synchro Dragon because it states it must be synchro summoned. Yeah, very cool deck, decently consistent, actually a very strong end board, just the engine isn't the most efficient. Very fun deck though. Now, let's move on to Odd Eyes. Alright, swinging into the Odd Eyes deck here. Once again, I'm going to take you through the card by card. After that, we'll talk about some of the end board pieces and key setup pieces, and then we'll take you through some of the combos. And I'll be real, this deck is not very good. It's a 2-card combo deck. It's kind of difficult to combo with because not many of the cards say special summon. There's really not many strong end board pieces, and of course you have to play a bunch of bricks as well. But that being said, fun anime deck, so let's get into it. Starting off with the main deck, we have 3 copies of Odd Eyes Seer, 3 copies of the Revolution Dragon, 3 copies of Joker, 3 copies of Monkeyboard, 3 copies of Sky Iris, 2 copies of the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, and then 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity. These are all of our consistency cards. Most of these 2-card combinations will let you play the game in some kind of way. The Arc Pendulum Dragon pairs with the least amount of other cards here, that's why we're only playing 2. I ended up replacing the 3rd for, of course, the Pot of Prosperity, but that is our 18 engine cards that we hopefully want to see at least 2 of to play the game. For the engine requirements, we have the Odd Eyes Valet, which can put the Odd Eyes Butler in graveyard. This is like one of the only Performapal or Odd Eyes cards that actually special summon themselves. We then have Gentrude, which you need in some combos to get to the Dissolver. This is one of your main methods of summoning the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which is one of your very few end board pieces. We also have 1 copy of Persona Dragon, which is also an end board piece. This just targets a monster that was summoned from the extra deck and negates its effects. You can, in a lot of cases, summon 2 of these in 1 turn, but that would be an additional brick in the deck. So it's probably safer just playing the 1, although you can go up to 2 if you find that you need it. Those are all of the mandatory kind of engine requirements. We are also playing a Performapal Lady Eng, which can just draw 2 cards to help dig for some non-engine in your kind of like engine heavy hands. That way you can back up the board with some hand traps. And then we're also playing an Astrograph Sorcerer. It's a pendulum deck, man. You gotta play the Astrograph Sorcerer. It's not really needed for any of your key combos, although it does say special summon, which is very rare apparently. And then the rest of the deck here is non-engine. Of course, we have the Ashes, the Imperms, the Veilers, the 2 Nibiru, the 2 Droll, and then the Caldbite and the Talents. You can build this entire main deck with just the 1 Legendary Arc 5 box. Of course, ideally you want to have a playset of like Mulcharmy Fuwalos, which requires more than 1 box. And obviously with just the 1 box, you're going to want to shuffle your hand traps around the 3 different decks. You can't really play all 3 of them at the same time. But yeah, that is our Odd Eyes main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for our links, we have 2 copies of Beyond the Pendulum, which is key to pretty much all of our combos. We have 1 of the new Odd Eyes Override Dragon, an IP Masquerena, which can go into the SP Little Knight, of course, one of our end board pieces. we have the Exceed the Pendulum, which can easily get us to a big access code talker, and that rounds out our Link monsters. For Exceed's monsters, we have the Raider's Knight, which can climb up into the Arc Rebellion and sometimes just end the game on the spot. We then have the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord, which is probably like the only rank 7 we're going to be able to summon in this board, because 2 level 7 dragon monsters just isn't really feasible. We can at least make this with the Astrograph Sorcerer, and then this would be able to get us into the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. Rounding out the Xyz monsters, we have the Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, which is another method of getting to our Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Of course, we play 2 of these, because not only can we summon it with Absolute, but we can also summon it with the Dissolver. And then finally, rounding out the extra deck, we have 1 copy of our Chaos Angel here as well. Now let's talk about some of our key cards. Okay, so here we have some of our key setup pieces for the Odd Eyes deck, and then of course the end board that we're working towards. These are our only really disruptive pieces that we can set up on an end board going first. Of course, we have the Vortex Dragon, which is like an Omni Negate, or on summon, it can bounce an attack position monster. We have the IP, which of course goes into the SP. Everyone knows what SP does. And then we have the Persona Dragon as well. It's really not a very high ceiling. Of course, sometimes you can summon 2 Persona Dragons if you do play the 2. And you can trigger the on-summon bounce effect on your opponent's turn, because if your opponent destroys a Vortex Dragon and you have Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon in scale, this can summon it back from the graveyard, allowing you to trigger the on-summon effect. Now, you can also make use of the Primi engine in this deck going first. Like, for example, you can do some funny combos where you'll send Gentrude to the face-up extra deck, which can then bounce your Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum back to hand, giving you a normal monster to reveal for your Drill Beam without having to, you know, summon out an Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon with a Lordly Load and getting hit with a Nibiru. As it stands, with this as your end board, you pretty much just get cooked by a Dark Ruler No More on the spot, and there's nothing you can do about it other than hope you have good hand traps in your hand. So it could be worth siding into the Primi engine for going first, just for the sake of a bit of a better ceiling. But as for our setup pieces here, of course, to get to the Vortex Dragon, most times is going to be summoned through the fusion effect of our Dissolver. Now, when it comes to actually playing out your turn, you're going to find that a majority of the game plan with your 2-card or 3-card combos is going to be trying to get 2 bodies on the field without Pendulum summoning. That way, you can link into your Beyond the Pendulum and then search whichever piece you need to help facilitate your further plays, while then being able to Pendulum summon and get rid of the Beyond the Pendulum restriction. That's then going to allow you to link up into your Odd Eyes Override Dragon, which typically you want to summon on summon number 5 so that you can play around Nibiru. Granted, Nibiru isn't super popular in the competitive metagame right now, but it's always something to be aware of. The Odd Eyes Override Dragon is a very good card. It's essentially an Omni Negate on your turn. However, this is going to allow you to get an additional Pendulum summon. With the 3 arrows, of course, you're going to get a lot of bodies, and then it can pop a card to draw a card as well, which can trigger your Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. Like I said, your Odd Eyes Dissolver is going to be your main way to bring out the Vortex Dragon with the fusion effect, either on field or the scale effect. And then you have 3 different ways of getting to the Persona Dragon. You can either summon it from deck with the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, you can send it to the extra deck with the Odd Eyes Seer to then Pendulum summon it back to the field, or you can just search it with the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon. Pretty much every hand and combo is going to be different. I will show you a bunch of 2-card combos that use kind of different cards, so you should get an idea of what your combos or turn should look like, at least once you get past the Beyond the Pendulum hurdle. So yeah, let's get into some combos. Alright, for our first 2-card combo is going to be the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon plus the Performer Pal Odd Eyes Seer. This is going to be like your basic Odd Eyes combo. So we're going to start here by activating the Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon in hand to search for the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon. We're then going to scale the Arc Pendulum and scale the Odd Eyes Seer. We'll activate the effect of the Odd Eyes Seer, which is going to add back the Revolution Dragon and pop itself. Because the Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon sees a face-up Odd Eyes card be destroyed, it's going to trigger to summon from deck a copy of the Odd Eyes Valet. Valet on summon is going to dump the Butler to the graveyard. Butler can then special summon itself from hand or graveyard by popping a Performapal or Odd Eyes face-up monster card you control. So before we do that, we're going to fire off the Revolution Dragon once again because it's not a hard once per turn, and we're going to search for the Odd Eyes Persona Dragon to get it in rotation. We'll then scale the Odd Eyes Persona Dragon and then target it with the graveyard effect of Butler. So that's going to pop it, and the Butler will special summon himself back to the field. We can then link 2 into our Beyond the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum, we're going to pay 1200 to search for a Pendulum monster. We already have a high scale on the field, so in order to Pendulum summon, we need to search for a low scale, and the most value we're going to get out of a low scale is searching for the Monkeyboard here. We're going to scale the Monkeyboard. Now, it would normally be a 4 scale since we don't have a Performapal monster in the other scale here, but because our scales are negated by the effect of Beyond the Pendulum currently, it's a scale 1. That doesn't really matter for this combo. We are just going to Pendulum summon to break the Beyond the Pendulum lock. And while we can summon out 2 monsters here, which would be slightly better, we are only just going to Pendulum summon out the Odd-Eye Seer in order to play around Nibiru because we can. Now, with the effect of the Odd-Eye Seer, because it's in defense position and it has been Pendulum summoned, we can activate the effect to place something like a Gentrude in the face-up extra deck for potential follow-up on turn 3. And then from here, we'll link with the Beyond the Pendulum into our Odd Eyes Override Dragon as summon number 5. We're now going to activate the scale effect of Monkeyboard to search a 4 or lower Performapal monster. That's going to be the Skullcrobat Joker. We can then normal summon the Skullcrobat Joker and activate its effect to search for our Odd Eyes Dissolver. And in order to gain our additional Pendulum summon with the Override Dragon, we have to pop a card and draw a card. So with the Override, we're going to pop our Monkeyboard here and draw a hand trap. Look at that, man. We're so lucky. We now have access to our additional Pendulum summon, so we can scale our Dissolver and Pendulum summon. Of course, our scales are 4 and 8, so we can only summon between level 5 and 7. We're going to bring out the Persona Dragon and then 2 other bodies that don't really matter. We're going to immediately link those 2 bodies into our IP Masquerena, and then we can activate the effect of Dissolver to fuse using our Odd Eyes Override with a Pendulum monster to bring out the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. And that is our end board. That's about as high as the ceiling gets for this deck though, so yeah, get used to this end board. Alright, the next 2 card combo I'm going to show you is Monkeyboard plus Skullcrobat Joker, because this is honestly kind of an awkward one that isn't that intuitive, and unfortunately you're not going to be able to make the full board. We are going to be missing out on the Persona Dragon on this board, but that's just how it is sometimes. I think it is definitely just worth showing you some of the awkward combos though, because typically for example, if you pair these 2 together, your Joker is just going to search for the Seer, and then you have the same combo as last time. This one plays out a little bit differently. So here we are going to normal summon the Joker and activate the effect to grab the only card that can special summon itself, the Odd Eyes Butler. And then with the Monkeyboard, typically we would just be searching the Joker with a Monkeyboard, but here we have to search a different level 4 or lower Performapal monster. With the way we're going to play this out, we want to add a low scale to pair with the high scale that we're going to search off of Beyond the Pendulum. Now here we have 2 options. We can either try and high roll it by activating the Lady Ange effect in hand, pitching itself in the Butler to draw 2 cards and hopefully some better combo pieces. Otherwise, we can just play it out and make a slightly worse board than normal, which is what I'm going to show you here. So here we're going to activate the effect of Butler, popping the Monkeyboard to special summon itself, and then we're going to link 2. That's going to bring out our Beyond the Pendulum, and then Beyond the Pendulum effect, we'll search for the Arc Pendulum Dragon. This gives us our low scale and our high scale, so we can then Pendulum summon. We need to summon specifically the Butler back to the field, and then the other monster doesn't really matter. This combo also plays into Nibiru, but sometimes it just be that way. From here, we link the Beyond the Pendulum with the Skullcrobat Joker into our Odd Eyes Override Dragon, and then we'll activate the effect of Override Dragon, popping our Butler to draw a card. Oh my god, another hand trap. We're so good, man. But yeah, Arc Pendulum Dragon, seeing the Butler gets destroyed, is going to trigger its effect. And here we can just simply summon out the Odd Eyes Dissolver from the deck. We're then going to use our additional Pendulum summon, summoning back 1, 2, 3 monsters. We can, of course, link 2 of them into our IP Masquerena, and then activate the effect of Dissolver. With its on-field fusion effect, you can actually fuse with your Pendulum scales as well. So you can fuse with the Lady Ange to make the Vortex, allowing you to use the Butler for IP Masquerena into SP and save the Override Dragon body potentially for the next turn. Or you can save your scales here and just fuse with the remaining body into the Vortex Dragon, leaving your IP to link with the Override Dragon. It really just depends what follow-up you value more, but yeah, we are missing the Persona Dragon here, so it's a little worse than your usual combos. Alright, the final 2-card combo I'm going to show you here for the Odd Eyes deck is Monkeyboard plus Sky Iris. Another awkward combo, but I think it's better to show you the awkward combos than just the kind of brain-dead obvious combos. Here, we are going to start by activating our Monkeyboard, and then its effect to add the Gentrude from the deck. We're then going to scale our Gentrude and activate activate our Sky Iris alongside the Sky Iris effect targeting the Gentrude. So that's going to destroy the Gentrude and search for our Valet. We're going to activate the effect of Gentrude when it's destroyed to place the Odd Eyes Seer into the scale. We're then going to normal summon our Valet and activate the effect of Valet, which of course is going to get us access to our second body by dumping the Butler. We'll then activate the effect of Butler in Graveyard, popping the Seer to special summon itself, and then we're going to link 2 into Beyond the Pendulum. Beyond the Pendulum effect, we of course have our low scale, so we add our high scale in the Arc Pendulum Dragon. We're then going to scale the Arc Pendulum Dragon and Pendulum Summon both the Odd Eyes Seer and the Odd Eyes Butler. We're then going to use the effect of Odd Eyes Seer because it's been Pendulum Summoned and it's in defense position. We can take our Persona Dragon and place it face up in the extra deck, and we'll then link into our Odd Eyes Override Dragon. We'll activate the effect of Override, popping our Butler. That's going to draw us a card. Oh! What do you know? A hand trap. But it's also going to trigger our Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon to bring out the Dissolver from the deck. We'll then use our additional Pendulum Summon to bring out the Persona Dragon and 2 extra bodies, which is going to allow us to then link into the IP Masquerena. And then finally, we'll use the effect of Dissolver to fuse, either with the Override Dragon or the Monkeyboard, to bring out the Vortex Dragon. And that's the end board. Very, very complicated deck with not much payoff, but again, fun anime deck, I suppose. I thought basically every Pendulum deck was about just vomiting a bunch of bodies onto the board, but somehow something beyond the Pendulum is actually difficult in this deck, man. How has that happened? And finally, we come to the boss of the box, the Lunalight Deck. Definitely by far the most competitive of the 3 strategies. There are a lot of resources that you can find online about this deck because the new card doesn't really change a lot. So we're just going to be going over the basics, but you can find a lot more advanced stuff online. So of course, as always, we're going to go through the card by card, speak about some of the key cards after, and then get into some combos. Starting off with the main deck, we have 3 copies of our Lunalight Gold Leo, 3 copies of Lunalight Masquerade, 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. You only get 1 in a box, so if you didn't buy 3 boxes, you should get 2 additional copies of the Foolish Burial Goods because it's very good in this deck. 3 copies of Tenki, 2 copies of Fractal. You can play 3 Fractal. Some of the ratios are kind of like interchangeable. You do, once again, only get 1 Fractal per box. So if you want to play more Fractal, you need to get more boxes or just more individual Fractals. And then we have a Foolish Burial, and that is 15 1-card combos. From there, we have 3 copies of the Lunalight Black Sheep. Getting to Poly in this deck is very, very important. So if you're able to just hard open the Black Sheep and guarantee your access to Poly that way, you can use your normal combo pieces to get into different pieces of extension. Black Sheep also just isn't a hard once per turn, so it's kind of crazy. From there, we also have 2 copies of the new Scarlet Tiger. You can play 1, you can play 2, you can play 3. It's not really a 1-card combo by itself. It's more just kind of like a medium extender. However, this card excels at pushing into boards and playing through hand traps. So it's almost like a Called by the Grave for Lunalight. Card is very, very good, but like I said, not a starter. You can maybe side into a 3rd one going 2nd, or maybe even just main 3. That is up to you. You have 2 copies of the Kaleido Chick. You're going to be activating this card so many times every turn. 2 copies of Silverhound and 2 copies of Perfume. We then also have 1 copy of Yellow Martin, 1 Emerald Bird, 1 Tiger, 1 Wolf, 1 Polymerization, 1 Lunalight Fusion for it going 2nd, and then 1 copy of the Serenade Dance to round out the engine. This turns your Foolish Burial Goods into a very powerful starter, especially when you pair it with something like Silverhound in hand, because not only are you getting to summon from deck, but you're also getting to discard for card effect. That is a 33 card engine, so we only have 7 spaces for non-engine. We've gone for 3 copies of Ash Blossom plus a Called by the Grave to stop our opponent's Mulcharmies and try and keep them off drawing multiple hand traps. Then the last 3 cards could be like a Mulcharmy Fuelos or Perulia or something. We've gone for 2 Droll and Lockbird plus a Black Goat Laughs because I didn't want to take the Mulcharmies out the Speedroid deck. Having the Black Goat Laughs, it's fine to draw going 1st, and then going 2nd, you can dump it off of the Foolish Burial Goods as a kind of board breaker. So yeah, that is the main deck. Now, a card I haven't included in the main deck but is very, very strong in the Lunalight deck is Heavy Polymerization. You should be playing 3 of this somewhere in your Lunalight deck, whether it be your side deck or your main deck. The reason I didn't include this in the main deck is because it's primarily a going second card, so you could side it in going second. Although there are a lot of people that do just main deck the heavy polymerization in their Lunalight deck so that game one, if they lose a dice roll and have to go second, they have an absolute bomb in their deck. Again, you do only get the 1 copy per box, so if you want to play Lunalight, you should be picking up the 2 additional copies of heavy polymerization alongside your 1 full box. The extra deck is super simple. We have 3 copies of Liger Dancer, 3 copies of Leo Dancer, 3 copies of Perfume Dancer, the Cross Sheep and the SP Little Knight for our links, the Outer Entity Nyarla, plus the Tiger King for our Xyz monsters, and then the last 2 slots can be whatever. I've gone for the Cat Dancer and the Panther Dancer for when we're able to fuse, but not quite get into the Liger Dancer. Maybe you play Saber Dancer instead of one of these. It is entirely up to you. You could also throw in a Redoer if you want to as well. So yeah, that's the entirety of the Lunalight list. Let's talk about some of the key cards. All right, so for Lunalight, when it comes to your key interruptive cards, it doesn't look like much, right? We have SP, we have the Silver Hound, which is a spell trap negate while it's in the graveyard alongside another Lunalight fusion, and then we of course have the Liger Dancer. There's not a whole lot of variety in end boards that you can put up, but Liger Dancer, if you summon this card, 9 times out of 10, you essentially win the game because your opponent is going to struggle to out it unless they open like Lava Golem or Sphere Mode or something like that. So the end goal is literally summon 2 or 3 Liger Dancers plus an SP Little Knight, and then you basically always have the Silver Hound available in graveyard if you've comboed as well. And speaking of comboing, that takes us to our key setup pieces. Now obviously there's a lot of different parts in the Lunalight deck. You're abusing many soft once per turn effects like the Lunalight Tiger and especially the Kaleido Chick. This can send a Lunalight from deck or extra deck to grave for cost, and then it copies its name when used as fusion material, and Liger Dancer requires the Lunalight Leo Dancer. So instead of going through the trouble of actually summoning this card to fuse up into your Liger Dancer, all you gotta do is resolve a Kaleido Chick, send a Leo Dancer from extra deck to graveyard, and you essentially have access to the Leo Dancer name. Now getting access to the polymerization is really important to kickstart your plays going into the Perfume Dancer to search for the Lunalight Perfume and continue playing from there. Perfume Dancer is then able to basically blink your Kaleido Chick and allow you to activate its effect again, getting you to even more Lunalight names. Then eventually your poly will get to the Liger Dancer with your bodies on field. Now the second and third Liger Dancer come from your Miracle Fusion-like effects, like Lunalight Wolf, which also isn't a hard once per turn, and the Lunalight Masquerade. If you fuse while Masquerade's on the field, you can add back a poly, discard a card, and then the next time you fuse, you can banish from the graveyard instead. So we won't get too complicated with the combos. I'll show you a 1-card combo. Most of the combos kind of follow that same pattern, and then I'll show you how the deck plays through Droll, because this deck can easily play through Droll, and maybe I'll try and figure out a way to incorporate the new card as well. So let's combo. All right, the first combo I'm going to show you is just the basic 1-card Lunalight Gold Leo combo, although you can kind of apply this same combo to most of the starters because they all kind of get to the same initial starting point. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can sequence this combo with Gold Leo. However, I am going to show you the best sequencing that plays around both Droll and Nibiru, and you can apply that to most of the starters in the deck. A lot of the combos I've seen with this card kind of go down a different path to end on a bigger board with like 3 Liger Dancer, but you really don't need to do that, especially when you're kind of throwing your combo away into the likes of Droll and Lockbird. So yeah, here we are going to normal summon the Gold Leo and activate Gold Leo effect, adding the Silver Hound and then discarding the Silver Hound. That's going to trigger the effect of Silver Hound to summon from deck a copy of Kaleido Chick. We're then going to activate the effect of Kaleido Chick, sending a Black Sheep from deck to graveyard for cost, which will then trigger Gold Leo on resolution to add back the Black Sheep from the graveyard. We can then activate the Black Sheep effect in hand to search for a copy of Polymerization, and then we'll fire off the Polymerization to fuse our 2 monsters on field into a Perfume Dancer. Here we'll go Chainlink 1 Perfume Dancer to add a Lunalight Perfume from deck, and Chainlink 2 Kaleido Chick to add back the Polymerization to our hand. We can then activate our Lunalight Perfume, summoning back the Kaleido Chick as summon number 4, and then we'll activate Kaleido Chick's effect once again, this time sending a Yellow Martin from deck to graveyard. We're then going to use the effect of Perfume Dancer, bouncing the Kaleido Chick back to hand and special summoning it back to the field, once again resetting its once per turn effect, allowing us to use it again. This time we're going to dump a Leo Dancer to the graveyard. We're going to link our 2 monsters into a copy of the Cross Sheep, and now we can fire off the graveyard effect of our Lunalight Perfume, and we are going to discard the polymerization here because it is just a 1-card combo, and the perfume is going to search for a copy of the Lunalight Wolf. We can now scale the Lunalight Wolf, which is basically a miracle fusion, and use its effects, banishing Perfume Dancer, Leo Dancer, Gold Leo, and Black Sheep, all of which is going to bring out a Liger Dancer. Cross Sheep will trigger here because a fusion monster has been summoned to an arrow it points to, allowing us to once again bring back the Kaleido Chick. We'll activate the Kaleido Chick once again because we can, dumping a Leo Dancer to the graveyard, and then we'll fire off the Yellow Marten engrave, bouncing our Scaled Wolf back to hand to special summon itself. We're then going to overlay the Chick and the Marten into a copy of the Outer Entity Nyarla, and we're going to activate Nyarla's effect. It doesn't detach for cost, it detaches for effect. So we detach our 2 materials here to attach the Silver Hound from the graveyard. Because Yellow Marten was sent to graveyard by card effect specifically, we're going to be able to activate its effect to search for a Lunalight Masquerade. Now, I've seen a lot of people get confused as to why the Yellow Marten does not get banished after summoning itself through its own effect when it leaves the field. And the reason for that is because when it's used as Xyz material for an Xyz monster, the materials do not count as being on the field, and therefore when you detach from an Xyz monster, it's not leaving the field specifically, therefore it does not get banished. But yeah, children's card game rules to the side, let's link our Cross Sheep and Nyarla into a copy of the SP Little Knight. We'll then fire off the Lunalight Masquerade and its effect, sending an Emerald Bird from deck to graveyard for effect, which is going to trigger the Emerald Bird to once again summon back the Kaleido Chick. Then we'll use Kaleido Chick's effect one last time, sending any Lunalight fusion from extra deck to graveyard. That way we have fodder in graveyard for the effect of Silverhound, and then we can fire off our Lunalight Wolf alongside the Miracle Fusion effect, banishing our Kaleido Chick, Emerald Bird, Yellow Marten, and Leo Dancer for Liger Dancer numero dos. And that is the super basic 1-card combo, doesn't lose to Droll, doesn't lose to Nibiru, and essentially wins the game unless the opponent has a Lava Golem or Sphere Mode. Now, before this, I've never really attempted to play Lunalight, and therefore I was always under the impression that Droll and Lockbird is really good against this deck because you search so many times. However, pretty much every one of your starters is able to play through Droll and Lockbird, and even set up a Liger Dancer if you have a fully built deck. I showed you the Gold Leo combo, so let's start with something different this time. Let's start with the Foolish Burial Goods and play into the Droll and Lockbird. Alright, so here we simply start with our Foolish Burial Goods, sending Serenade Dance to the graveyard. We can then activate the graveyard effect of Serenade Dance, sending a card from hand to graveyard, and summoning a Lunalight from the deck. We'll trigger the effect of Gold Leo, where we add Silverhound to hand and discard this Silverhound. We would then activate the effect of Silverhound, and here is where our opponent is able to chain the Droll and Lockbird. We do not have a response to that, there's no Call by the Grave in this hand, but we will resolve the Silverhound, bringing out a copy of Kaleido Chick from the deck. From here we'll activate Kaleido Chick effect, and because we're under the Droll, we're just going to send Lunalight Wolf from the deck to the graveyard, which will trigger the Gold Leo on resolution to add back the Lunalight Wolf to hand. We're then going to scale the Lunalight Wolf and activate Wolf's effect to fusion summon, banishing both the Gold Leo and the Silverhound from the graveyard, which will bring out a Perfume Dancer. We can then use the effect of Perfume Dancer, bouncing the Kaleido Chick and summoning it back to the field, where we can then activate its effect once again, sending another Silverhound to the graveyard. We can then link our 2 monsters into SP Little Knight, giving us through Droll the SP Little Knight banish, and then the spell Trap Negate on our Silverhound in graveyard with the Perfume Dancer as our fusion. That's all we can do with just the Legendary Arc 5 decks, but if we add a Dugares into the mix, we can actually get to SP plus a Liger Dancer. So we're going to do the same again, play a different starter into the Droll and Lockbird, but this time we have a Dugares in the extra deck, which is honestly a card you really want to pick up to upgrade this deck, and we'll show you how to get to the Liger Dancer. So here we are going to activate our Tri-Brigade Fractile. That's going to send a Silverhound to the graveyard, and we're going to trigger Silverhound's effect. Summoning out a copy of Gold Leo from the deck, we'll activate Gold Leo on summon, adding a Kaleido Chick to hand and discarding any other cards. Here is where our opponent is going to hit us with the Droll and Lockbird, but that is totally fine. We'll normal summon the Kaleido Chick. Kaleido Chick effect, same as before, we dump the Wolf. That's going to trigger the Gold Leo to add the Wolf back to hand, and then we'll activate the Wolf and the fusion effect, banishing the Gold Leo, as well as Silverhound from the graveyard. to bring out our Perfume Dancer. We'll go effect of Perfume Dancer, bouncing Kaleido Chick back to hand and special summoning it back to the field. And then we'll go Kaleido Chick again, this time dumping Yellow Marten. Yellow Marten effect can bounce the wolf back to hand to special summon itself, and then we're going to overlay into Dugares. Now here there's no ruling issue because we have Fractal in Graveyard, but even if we didn't have a monster in Graveyard, Dugares is still able to activate the Reborn effect. The reason for that is that it reads, you can detach 2 materials from this card, then activate one of the following effects. You detach 2 for cost, and then choose an effect when you're resolving. So we detach our 2 monsters, and then choose the Reborn effect, which is going to reborn the Kaleido Chick. We can use the Kaleido Chick effect again on field, sending a Leo Dancer to grave. We can then link our 2 monsters into our SP Little Knight and fire off the Lunalight Wolf. Miracle Fusion effect once again, banishing 1, 2, 3, 4. That is going to get us to our Liger Dancer, which could very easily just win the game. So yeah, Lunalight can play through Droll. I didn't know that. Basically every starter can do it. It's crazy. And finally, while we're on the topic of playing through hand traps, I mentioned that the new card is essentially like a Lunalight called by the grave, and I did want to at least showcase doing something with the new card. So here is how you're able to play through hand traps, for example, with the new Scarlet Tiger. In this example here, we are going to start by normal summoning our Gold Leo and activating its effect, and it's going to get met with an infinite impermanence. Well, on resolution of that, we can activate our Scarlet Tiger in hand to special summon itself, and because our opponent has activated a card or effect this turn, we can search a polymerization. This combo does have a lot more steps to it than the previous kind of combos, so it might take a little bit of getting used to. Here we are going to fire off the poly, fusing our 2 Lunalights into the Perfume Dancer, and we go chain 1 Perfume Dancer, chain 2 Scarlet Tiger to summon back the Gold Leo while searching for Perfume. Firing off the Perfume, we're going to summon back the Scarlet Tiger from the graveyard, and then we can use the Graveyard effect of Perfume, pitching a card from hand to grab the Kaleido Chick from the deck. We can now use the other effect of Perfume Dancer, bouncing one of our monsters to the hand to special summon our Kaleido Chick to the field. And now we'll go Kaleido Chick effect. Here we're going to send Tiger to the graveyard. And the reason for that is because we're going to be able to fetch it back by overlaying these 2 into our Tiger King, who on summon is going to set a copy of Tenki from the deck. We can activate said Tenki, adding a Black Sheep from the deck. We're now able to fire off the Black Sheep to add the Tiger from grave to hand. We want to continue looping our Kaleido Chick, so we're going to link both of our monsters here into the Cross Sheep, and then skill the Tiger, and Tiger's effect to reborn our Kaleido Chick. Kaleido Chick effect will send Yellow Marten to grave, and then Yellow Marten can bounce the Tiger back to hand to special summon itself, where we overlay both into our Nyarla. We go Nyarla effect, detaching our 2 materials for effect to attach the Tiger King from the graveyard, and that's going to trigger both the Yellow Marten and the Kaleido Chick, adding back our polymerization and searching for a Masquerade. Bosh. Now, because our Gold Leo was negated at the start of the turn, we actually haven't managed to go through our Silverhound, so that's where the Masquerade comes in, sending Silverhound to grave for effect, which will trigger the Silverhound to summon out our second copy of Kaleido Chick from the deck. We'll activate the effect of Kaleido Chick, sending our Leo Dancer to the graveyard to copy its name. We'll fire off the Tiger once again and activate the Tiger effect, summoning back our Perfume Dancer fusion monster to the Cross Sheep arrow, which will trigger the Cross Sheep to summon the Black Sheep from graveyards. We'll then fire off our poly using our Scarlet Tiger in hand, plus the Perfume Dancer, the Black Sheep, and our Kaleido Chick, which is currently named Leo Dancer, to bring out Liger Dancer number 1. And we got a couple of chain links here. We go chain link 1 Masquerade, which will add back polymerization and then discard a card for effect to gain that Miracle Fusion like effect. And then we go chain link 2 Black Sheep to add back a monster from our graveyard. We'll just add back a card which we can then discard on resolution of the chain, where we get back the polymerization. We can link both of our used up monsters here for an SP Little Knight, and then finally fire off the polymerization, which has that Miracle Fusion effect, banishing 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the graveyard to bring out our second Liger Dancer, and we still have the Perfume Dancer and Graveyard for the Silverhound as well. Same board as the 1-card combo, so quite literally Scarlet Tiger was pretty much called by the grave for Lunalight, man. This deck is crazy. Or I guess I should say this card is crazy, bro. Fuck the Liger Dancer. This has nothing on it indestructible 6000 attack Red Dragon Archfiend, let me tell you. Anyway, that's been our ultimate guide to the legendary Arc 5 decks. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. 52 minutes is a lot, man. Holy, but thanks for watching. Happy dueling, and I'll see you in the next one.